Hey guys, one much on the video on the Inside Special. Happy Saturday morning. Hope we're all okay. Hope we're right. I hope the weekend is, well, looking bright. It's going to treat you well. Obviously, there's no club football this weekend, so Spurs can't ruin your weekend, which is nice. But, we're going to be talking about some transfer news surrounding Radu Dragusin and the interest from Serie. We talk about this stupid report surrounding Ange losing the dressing room, which I'll talk about it in all its entirety when I get to it. Just want to say, if you're watching this, you know, subscribe. You're very much welcome to join us for the journey. And let's sort of start with the Dragusin news because it's probably got a lot more relevancy than the other one. So it came out from Calcio Mercato saying that Juventus are reportedly considering Radu Dragusin to strengthen the defence during the winter transfer window. And I was all looking a little bit more into the Juventus world of things because they have got some serious injuries at the moment. Obviously the big one, and the reason probably why the Dragusin report's coming out is of Gleison Raymer, who he ruptured his cruciate ligament. So he's done for the season, obviously. Then their left back who can also play a bit of centre back, Juan Cabal, also rupturing his ACL. So, in the space of, I think it's about 5 or 6 weeks, they lost two centre backs or two defenders at least that can play at least centre back, but have lost ACL injuries. And obviously Dragusin knows the Serie A. He's had success in the Serie A. He knows Juventus. He's obviously been at the club before. The issue you find with Serie A is there just is no money in the Serie A. There just isn't. Napoli thought they were going to get this war chest from Victor Osimhen. That didn't happen. There just isn't money in the Serie A. That the TV rights don't bring in anything. That's the reason why they prey on free transfers, because obviously then it's going to save them a lot of money. With Dragusin, obviously he's not going to go there for 5-10 mil, is he? If we've spent 25 on him, Spurs are going to want their money back, if not more. I think Dragusin, gets, I think, unfairly critiqued at times at Spurs because, yes, there's been occasions where it's not been pleasant on the eye, sometimes playing out from the back. There's been times where it's been great, and there's been times where you're like, oh, there's a weakness potentially in his game there. I've always said that, defensively, as if you're sitting in a low block and you need to defend, he's great. Obviously, we know that when he plays for Romania, he played in the Serie A. He, hadn't been dribble passed in the Serie A in half a season, which was the best in all of the top 5 leagues. The issue is obviously, is he athletic enough to play in the Ange ball system with the ability to play out from the back, which is obviously, there is a potential concern there. I totally get that. Have we seen a big enough sample size? No. And if people go, I've seen everything I need to see, he's never going to be able to do it, it just means they just don't like him. They've not really ever going to give him a chance. And we haven't really seen enough sample size for him. I said this season, if you take into account his international football commitments, the EFL Cup, the which is obviously the League Cup, the FA Cup, and the Premier League, he's going to start around about 30 games this season. And then after a season, I think you'd find that's where you probably have a good enough sample size to really judge on what you have. The other thing, obviously, is he's only played a season and a half, really, of top flight football. He started top flight football last year in the summer, so he's not exactly full of experience when it comes to top flight football. Obviously, he played a lot in the Serie B. He played a little bit in the Serie A for Genoa, then obviously moved to Tottenham in the January window. So he's not even been in England a year yet. And for some reason, at Spurs, we sometimes give players who struggle at first a lot more time than others. I think we gave Lamela about 3 years before he decided that he wanted to really contribute anything. For some reason, now we don't want to seem to give any players more than 30 minutes to contribute. I mean, look, Yang comes in January. If he misplaces a pass, people would tell him to get out of our club. I've seen it all over Twitter. That's why in the description below, bsky, I've actually set my account up on there because I'm hoping we're not going to get absolute nimrods over at bsky, and actually people can have a proper conversation about football. I'm seeing people call, people talk a big game about mental health, and then they go, I literally saw it. Someone called Dragusin a spastic. It's like, yeah, because that's the way you go about. That's the way you go about being a human being. you know, people talking about let's burn his passport and we have to send him back and things like that. It's like, right, mate, just grow up, get out of your own basement, go and touch some grass, go and speak to another human being. It's been an absolute Nimrod, mate. Sorry, morning Spurs, morning Dan. Thank you, Kieran. And morning, Andy. Hope you're well. Cheers, Sophia, mate. Hope you're good as well, buddy. So look, the other let's play the other side of this. Let's say Spurs do get an offer of, let's say, 25 million. They get their money back on Dragusin. You would have to have a ready to go replacement. You're not selling him and bringing in someone who's a prospect. I'm sorry, just no. Not with the amount of football that Dragusin would have to play this season. Excuse me for my hair. Mental, isn't it? For me, you'd have to bring someone in that's ready to go right now. I don't want to have another, it'd be good in a couple of years. We could have just done that with Dragusin. So bringing someone that's ready to go now is the other sort of side of the coin that I would go with. For me, that if there is someone that's, that you look at and think is more suitable and ready to go, then you entertain the idea. But if you're a bit unsure, you're not too, just stick with Dragusin. Just see what he's got. I mean, physically, like I said, physically, he just needs to recognize that he's just bigger than pretty much every player in the Premier League. And once he recognizes that, he's going to be a dominant monster. He does it when he plays for Romania. He realizes that he's bigger than everyone else on the pitch and shows it. He did it for Genoa for some reason. For Spurs, he hasn't really recognized it yet, and I don't know why. So that's the one thing we need to recognize there. And then I think, as coaching comes along, he will develop the ability to play out from the back. It will come. I've got all the faith in the world. Let's move over to this. I can't stress enough how much of a bogus report this is. And this, like I said to you about column inches, people put in things to fill out their columns to gain more money, or people put things out on Twitter to farm engagement so they get more money. So Football Insider, who for the most part, they're not spot on. They have some good moments, but they're not spot on. This is definitely one they're not spot on with. And it says that Ange has fallen out with at least 4 Tottenham first-team players, which is believed to include Italian contingent in the Spurs squad. Italy internationals Desti Udogie and Vicario, as well as ex-Serie A stars Rodrigo Bentancur and Cristiano Romero, are believed to have been among those who've been upset by Postecoglou. Before I talk about as to maybe why, I don't think so whatsoever. Vic has spoken very highly of Ange, said that he would sign for the club in blood. He'd walk here, so it's not going to be him. Destiny, you hear nothing from Destiny. I highly doubt Destiny's agents leaking things to Football Insider. Romero, I don't think it's Romero whatsoever. He's been made a vice captain. He said so many times that he likes playing for Ange. And Bentancur has had tons of public support from Ange, plays a lot of football. And for a guy, by the way, he gets injured quite, not quite often, but he gets big injuries. The club has stuck by him the whole time. So I very highly doubt. I mean, look, there might be other players in the squad maybe, but I highly doubt it's those 4. What they've sort of harped on with is this, and the sources understand that his straight talking in public and behind the scenes has had a negative reaction in the dressing room and sown discord at the heart of the team's wild swings in form. Okay, let's talk about that. You as a man, and I'm going to talk to the 4 of these, if this is these 4, okay? I'm actually older than all of them, okay? So I'm 28. They're, 26, 27 and below. If you can't handle someone telling you harsh truths, like, you didn't play well at the weekend, you need to start working on X. Look, we need you to step up as a leader. Those things that you should do anyway as a professional footballer. But if you can't handle that, then you have the problem. It's not Ange. Ange telling you straight facts. He's not going to dance around. He's not going to beat around the bush. But also, quite often, he takes criticism from the team losing a game and puts it on himself. Now, he's called out some games where players haven't done enough, and you can tell those players hadn't done enough in those games. But at Ipswich, I would have called out those players. I did personally myself, but he said, look, I need to be better. So he actually has, quite often formed a shield in front of these players from getting criticism. And once they get a little bit of criticism, they throw the toys out the pram. So if that's the case, move them off. Genuinely, if they can't handle it, don't ever play in England. If you can't handle a bit of criticism like that, from a manager who has your back, who defends the club and defends the players so frequently for your inadequacies, just leave the club, lad. Because if you can't handle it now, what happens when Spurs maybe get better and really start to fight on all fronts and maybe are expected to be, cup challenges, title challenges, maybe. I'm not saying it would happen. I'm just saying hypothetically, that's as you as a player should think that's where the club's going. So if you get there and the pressure is on you to really play in week in, week out, win every single game virtually, if you can't handle it now, good Lord, you're screwed when it happens. This is a mentality issue from these four, if that's the case. And I don't think it's true, by the way, for a heartbeat. I do not think it's true for even a small second. But if it is true, like I'm saying, we're playing a hypothetical game here, then they're the issues. It's not Ange. Conte called out players. They couldn't hack it. Some of them can hack it. Some of them did. Some of them responded really well. Harry Kane and Son responded really well. Mourinho called them out. Some players couldn't hack it. For a little while, players did, and then they realized, they couldn't. But you found out that players were going behind the manager's back, and ironically, they were the squad rotation players that, they weren't starting week in, week out, thinking that, these guys, I play at Spurs. I should now be looking at my next move being Real Madrid. It's like, lad, you're barely good enough to play at Spurs. Let's just settle down. Charlton Athletic are calling for you. No offense, Charlton. Actually like Charlton. I've got no beef with them, but it's just a lower league club. First one that came to my mind. So look, this isn't a real story in my opinion whatsoever. I don't foresee it being a reason why maybe Destiny or Romero haven't played well this season. I don't think for a second, Bentancur, struggles with fitness because he doesn't want to play for Ange. If you've watched Bentancur the last few weeks, you can tell he's playing hard for the club. And if you're playing hard for the club, it normally means you're playing hard for the manager. Pause. But you know what I mean? You're playing, you're giving your all for the club. If you didn't like the manager, you don't give your all for the club. We've seen it at Man United. We have seen it at Man United when those players do not want to play for a manager, they down tools real quick. It doesn't matter that Man United, some of them, grew up supporting. It doesn't matter. So I don't think for a second this is true. Like I said, the manager has backed some of these players publicly, supported them publicly when some of the press have been like, is he all right? Managers back them. So, no, it's not true. I wanted to bring it in here. Just negate it, sort of poo-poo it, bury it, move on. Not for a second, like I said, not for a second do I think this is true. And you shouldn't either, in my opinion. You make your own decisions. Don't think I sit here and tell you the way the world works is what I think. But if you go and watch performances and you go and watch attitudes, you can tell these boys are all still playing hard for Spurs. Now, does it mean the performances have been up to scratch? That's another question. But the effort levels are there. Okay. If Romero didn't want to play for Spurs, he wouldn't have played against Ipswich. He wasn't that fit enough to play against Ipswich anyway, and he did. He's a guy that, he goes off to Argentina to play. Yes, he might get injured, but he's gone off to Argentina to play because he cares about Argentina. He cares about Spurs. The others, Bentancur coming back from injuries early, 2 injuries. He came back from, he came back from the ankle injury suffered against Villa. He came back from that I think it was like 6 weeks early. He came back from his long-term injury that he got the season previous about 6 weeks early. So if he didn't care, he just wouldn't play, So, well, I'm more than adventurous, Howie, mate. I've not seen any players at Spurs down tools. Maybe some silly mistakes, but you can see they care. Yeah, you can see they care. Absolutely rhythmic eye, mate. How are you? You can see they care. Not, like I said, not for a second do I think this is true. Not for a second do I think these boys haven't put their effort in where they should. Just don't believe everything you read on the internet is kind of the way I'd sum up that situation, because I don't, Football Insider here, I think are clutching at straws. And I think the people that are reposting it and living on it that it's true are just really trying to farm engagement so they can make a bit of money. So that's why you bring it in here, we bring it out, you put it on the table, we dissect it, and then we swipe it off the table and go, get out of here. Go on, catch you later. You're not involved over here. Positivity only, But anyway, thanks very much for joining me this morning, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your mornings, enjoy the rest of your afternoons, evenings, wherever you are in the world. Enjoy the rest of your weekends, and I'll speak to you all very, very soon. Speak a little bit more nonsense about Spurs. Take care, everyone. Peace.